Welcome to this explainer. Okay, we are diving right into things today because we're unpacking a concept that absolutely blew my mind when I first really understood it. We're looking at the hidden psychological software that dictates our long-term life outcomes. Have you ever wondered why you, or maybe someone you know, seems to end up in the exact same type of toxic relationship or hits the exact same frustrating career bottleneck just over and over again? Well, it's not bad luck. It's programming. Today, we're going to explore this fascinating behavioral psychology concept called life games and look at how these deeply embedded scripts are quietly running the show behind the scenes of our lives.
Here is a quick look at a roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with the hidden scripts we run, then look at chasing emotional payoffs, move into the identity reinforcement loop, see life games in action, and finish up with breaking the cycle.
All right, Section 1, the hidden scripts we run.
To truly grasp this stuff, we really have to challenge a core assumption that most of us hold incredibly dear. I'm talking about the idea that humans are purely rational creatures, constantly optimizing our lives for success and happiness. Ask yourself, why do we repeatedly make familiar mistakes? If we're these highly logical beings who supposedly just want to succeed, why do we constantly repeat the exact same harmful patterns? Like, think about it. We touch a hot stove, we get burned, we learn not to touch it again. Simple, right? Yet in our careers, our finances, our relationships, we will figuratively touch that exact same hot stove a dozen times. We rationalize it away, we blame external circumstances, but the pattern is always there. So what's really going on?
The answer is that we are playing life games. And by that, I mean these repetitive, long-term behavioral scripts that shape our identity and our life outcomes by repeatedly producing predictable emotional payoffs. I really want to emphasize the word long-term here. We're not talking about brief, 5-minute interactions or petty little arguments. We are talking about decades-long scripts. They're these deeply embedded narratives that make certain outcomes not just likely, but psychologically necessary for the person playing them. It's essentially an unconscious strategy that converts psychological comfort into long-term behavioral constraints.
Moving right along to Section 2, chasing emotional payoffs.
So this builds into a massive paradigm shift. We have to look at what actually drives human behavior at its absolute core. We go through life totally assuming our main goal is objective success, right? Making more money, finding a healthy partner, achieving peace of mind. But the secret engine driving the life game is that we are actually pursuing emotional familiarity. We fiercely crave the feeling we already know, even if that feeling is utterly miserable. This brings us to a crucial point. People optimize for emotional consistency, not objective success. Just let that sink in for a second. People don't just play games in isolated little interactions. They build entire life trajectories around them. Even highly negative outcomes, like failing a massive project, getting dumped, going completely broke, are unconsciously pursued if they satisfy our emotional expectations and confirm who we think we are. Basically, we prefer a predictable disaster over an unpredictable success. Crazy, right?
And these emotional expectations form what we call subconscious life stories. Our early childhood conditioning actually writes these scripts for us. You might have a winner script, sure, but a lot of people unknowingly adopt a loser script, a rescuer script, or a victim script. And what's absolutely wild is that our social systems actually reward these recognizable roles. Like, if you play the rescuer, society applauds you, even if you are constantly attaching yourself to toxic situations just to play that part. If you play the victim, you receive a very predictable type of sympathy. Eventually, your identity just gets totally locked into these stories.
Okay, Section 3, the identity reinforcement loop.
Let's get highly analytical for a minute and map out the actual mechanical engine underneath these games. How exactly does a subconscious script turn into, say, a ruined career or a broken marriage? Well, it happens through a self-fulfilling behavior loop. Step 1. You engage in a behavior dictated by your script. Step 2. That behavior leads to a perfectly predictable outcome. And Step 3. That outcome confirms your identity, which yanks us right back to Step 1. For example, if you have a subconscious loser script, you might volunteer for an impossibly poorly planned project at work. The predictable outcome? The project completely tanks. The identity confirmation? You tell yourself, see, I knew I wasn't cut out for leadership. Your identity is reinforced, forcing the whole loop to repeat.
And keep in mind, this isn't happening overnight. This is a very long horizon reinforcement system. In our first 10 years, the script is formed. From years 10 to 20, we start testing it out, running repeated transaction patterns with friends and early partners. By years 20 to 30, we hit identity lock-in. The concrete is officially drying. And by the time we hit our 30s and beyond, our major life decisions, who we marry, what career we pursue, how we invest our money, they are entirely shaped by a deep need to keep that original script consistent. That unconscious life script literally becomes the ultimate control node.
Let's jump to Section 4, Life Games in Action.
Now, I want to prove to you that this isn't just about personal relationships or sitting on a therapist's couch. This psychological contagion infects the absolute highest stakes domains in the world. Look at financial trading. We constantly see revenge trading. A trader loses a ton of money, but instead of cutting their losses logically, they risk the whole portfolio to preserve their identity as a winner. They prioritize their emotional script over their actual capital. In chess, grandmasters will sometimes stubbornly stick to habitual openings regardless of what's happening on the board. Again, identity over optimization. In cybersecurity, hackers literally prey on predictable user behavior, exploiting these exact identity scripts. Even in the military and in politics, massive institutions fall victim to path dependency, causing huge strategic failures simply because they refuse to break character. The need to feel familiar just constantly overrides rational optimization.
Finally, Section 5, Breaking the Cycle.
So how do we actually escape this? If the strongest form of control is an identity-level script that literally makes our failures feel necessary, we need a serious escape plan. But before we get to the tactics, we need a modern behavioral science correction here, which is this. Life outcomes equal your script multiplied by environment fit. This is incredibly empowering, guys. It means your internal scripts are not deterministic destiny. Actually, scratch that. It means they interact directly with external environments, constraints, and opportunities. You are not permanently doomed by your childhood programming. If you change your environment, or actively shift your opportunity structures, you disrupt the math of this entire equation.
So here is the concrete logic to rewrite your system. First, you have to detect those recurring outcome patterns. Don't just look at individual bad days, look at the decade-long trend. Second, and honestly, this is absolutely crucial, identify your emotional familiarity bias. If a chaotic or totally toxic situation suddenly feels normal or feels like home to you, that is literally your ultimate flashing red warning sign. Acknowledge it. Third, actively disrupt that behavior loop. Do the exact opposite of what your script demands. And finally, replace that emotional knee-jerk response with adult-state rational decision-making. You have to decouple your identity from the outcome.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a pretty provocative thought to ponder today. What emotional payoff is scripting your life right now? Are you accidentally choosing familiar pain over the incredibly scary prospect of unfamiliar success? Take some time to really analyze your own programming. Challenge those familiar failure comfort zones and start writing a brand new script. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I really hope this helps you break the loops holding you back.